Kia ora e te whānau o tūtāne, nau mai whakahoki mai ki te kōnai ipurangi nei, a tūtāne pai ki te hoki mai koutou, i tēnei rā, ko tēnei te kaupeka tuarua, wāhanga tuarima. Hello to Becoming Tāne family, glad that you could all come back today. This is Season 2, Episode 5. This is the podcast where we try to help grow great guys. Growing great guys isn't easy, but we're up for the challenge because I believe that our partners, our kids, our whānau deserve to have great guys supporting them. Please tell your whānau and friends to subscribe to the podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking to Ryan Monga of Arija. Ryan shares some of his insightful perceptions about his journey so far. Before we talk to Ryan today, let me give you some background information on him. Ryan was born in Auckland. He comes from a blended whānau of 13 kids. He attended Baird's and Yendara Primary School, went on to Ferguson Intermediate and Hillary College. He left high school at 17 to work at a container company. While at this job, a workmate of his invited him to join him for a jam session. Eventually, this jam session led to him purchasing his first bass guitar. A short time later, he was introduced to JD, James Tuiara and Richie Campbell, and went on to form the band Arija around 1979. His band regularly gigged throughout Auckland while he was still working at the container company. Eventually something had to give, and as soon as he was able to make enough money from music, he quit his job to focus on his music. For over 40 years, he's been focusing on his music, and in 2019, Arija released a 1970s Paul McCartney song called Every Night to mark his band's 40th anniversary. Over the years, his band has won numerous awards, from the Ryan Rock Awards to the top female vocalist to the best album of the year. Ryan first met his wife, or saw his wife, when they both competed against one another at a talent quest competition at Billy Joe's in Papatoetoe in 1980. A short time after the competition, Betty joined Arija, and eventually Betty and Ryan went on to have 4 kids, 3 boys and 1 girl. If you needed to find peace, where do you go, or what do you do to find peace?
For me, I generally find the peace within my family, or when I'm with someone that I'm quite comfortable with, I can be open about it.
I reckon it's just being happy within yourself and others.
For me, to find peace, I use several ways or several means to find peace. Now, compared to before, I meditate, use guided meditation. I use guided breath work. I disappear into the ngahere or the forest and go and become one with nature. I love to connect with the land.
I find peace in reflection. So having the time to reflect on the things I've done and achieved, the things that my family has done and achieved, and then having gratitude for all of those things as well as the small things too.
For me, I find peace taking a long walk, usually walking the dog, perhaps listening to some good music. I also find peace in reading a good book.
You've heard where these tāne find peace. Now where do you find peace? Kia ora, Ryan. Welcome to the Becoming Tāne podcast. I'm looking forward to sharing your story today.
Kia ora, thank you.
Ryan, I believe that we are who we are as a result of our life experiences. What 2 events or experiences in your life has had the greatest impact on you?
I think the first one is actually starting in the band Arija, because it was kind of like my my new family, leaving the family nest and meeting up with, my music mates, new fellas back then, JD, Richie Campbell and James Tuiara, and then Betty Ann joined in. So that was one of them, starting that new family in music, but pretty much become my family, my new family, for the last 40 years. And the second one was meeting the Bee Gees, because they were like the soundtrack to a lot of my life too. When I was growing up, teenage days, especially with the disco days and going to town and going to the discos back in the mid 70s. Just coming out of school before the band. We were listening to that music, and I mean, yeah, big influence on my songwriting as well, and the harmonies and groove as well, So those were the two main things, I think, just off the top of my head. There's more to it, but those were the two main things.
How did your meeting come about with the Bee Gees?
Well, I've always been a fan, and, they used to always get mocked by, people that used to mock disco, and, that John Travolta dance, Saturday Night Fever, it was like a mocking thing. And, I've always been a fan of theirs. And when we had the band and I wrote some songs for Arija, and then I thought, everybody's doing covers. Oh, okay, I'll do some covers. And Love So Right was, one of the main choices that we did, which was a Bee Gees song. And it was the most played song on New Zealand radio back in 1998. And we didn't get any awards for that, but that was a big award, just getting it played on radio. And then in 1999, the Bee Gees turned up. And then the news went around that we did one of their covers, and that's how we got to meet them. Got invited to a press conference in town. Oh, it was amazing because you had all, people in the industry there. And here's Betty Ann and I, from South Auckland going to this thing. We were like waiting for the security to, I think you're in the wrong place. But their management turns up to us in the beginning of the day, the conference. Oh, there you are. Oh, yes, I've got your tickets for you, you and Betty. You can meet the boys later on. And I'm going, is she talking to us or, And then we did. We went into the conference and got to hear the interview and stuff like that, and hearing them acknowledge our Māori show bands over in Sydney. They learnt a lot off them and the harmonies and all of that and the groove from them. So that was pretty good. And then at the end of the conference, the big announcement, everybody else is to leave the conference except the boys, the record company and Arija. And I'll go, oh, what? Like I couldn't wipe the smile off my face, and then we went out the side on the balcony and then took some photos. They had photos with their record company, and then they came and had photos with us. And, oh, man, it was just beautiful, just standing amongst them, shaking their hand and then standing amongst them. We got 2 photos taken, and we got those, I think we got the negatives somewhere. Those photos are on our, with all our family photos. That's me, because it was such a big part of my life. And all 3 of them were there too with us. So, it was sad when the other 2 twins, passed on. But that was the big memory.
Did they say anything in particular to you?
Oh, you guys, you's the ones that did that song, because it was a ballad before. And I know that they would have been like, oh, they got a couple of wrong chords in there. But it was like, oh, well, that's our version, And it was a rush job, but it was a good one.
You mentioned earlier when you started Arija that they were a new family. Can I ask you about your own family? Growing up with 12 other siblings, that must have been a challenge for you growing up.
Well, the thing is, we didn't all grow up in one house. So my dad's 4 kids, my brothers and sisters were from Rarotonga. And so they mainly lived there. but came over here now and then. And my mum had 6 kids from the islands as well, Aitutaki, and we grew up with 2 of them, the 2 younger ones. So I was next in line, and then my 2 younger brothers. So we grew up with 2 of those guys, and the rest of them were older kids and lived up and down. My sister was in Hamilton, another one in Tokoroa, another one in Wellington, and a brother in Nelson. Yeah, there was a lot of coverage if we wanted somewhere to stay. It's just, you know.
Did your Rarotongan heritage play a big part in your upbringing and your music?
Yeah, definitely. Like I went to Rarotonga when I was about 10 years old. There was no airport, and it was on a ship, the Northern Star. So I got to stay there. I went there for 4 weeks, but a hurricane hit, and I had to stay there for 6 months, and I went to school there. Luckily, I understood Māori fluently, so the old people were talking to me back then. You know, they were really old people and telling me about the legends of the migration, canoes coming in from the outer islands, Aitutaki, other islands that built their canoes and met in Rarotonga, which is Amtaki Tumu as well. That's the district over there. So I learned a lot about the culture, and they were still cooking food outside on rocks, but not in a hole, but just on top of the ground. You know, just things like that, planting your own food. Taro, kumara as well was over there. Just learning all of that stuff, the traditions, and which helped me over here as well, you know, in Aotearoa. So like times like these, and you want to go back to the land, well, I've been living that way for a while, in and amongst, living in the city as well. So yeah, it really helped out with the music as well. I learned how to play the uke over there when I was 10. Also the guitar. My older brother taught me the 3 chords, and it was amazing how many songs you can play with those 3 chords down the end. But I was only 10 years old, and you know, I was the guitarist in the parties. So it had a big influence on the music as well as the culture and living life, really.
I can imagine throughout your music career that you would have faced a number of difficult decisions. I want to ask about one particular decision that you had to make. That decision was to quit your day job and go all in on your music. Did you doubt this decision?
I pretty much took that leap of faith, because I'd be doing 40 hours a week and also overtime, and coming out with $100, $120 in my pay packet. Looked like I was just getting the envelope and a pay slip. And then I had a taste of the band, when I had the first time getting paid. And we were like working two nights a week. And, like I'd say 4 hours a night. So that's like 8 hours. 12 hours, whatever, and coming home with $250. And as a young fellow, I was like, I didn't get maths at school, but I think that this is a better deal, and I have more time to myself. The weekend starts at Sunday and finishes at Wednesday, where the normal job, it's Saturday and Sunday, and that's it, back to work again, you know. So it was a major decision, but I always look at it as jumping over a cliff, like a big gap in the ground, and there's a deep hole, and jumping over to the other side, both feet, not one on one side and my other foot on the other side of this blinking gully, but jumping totally over there into the music world. So that's the way I look at it. And then when I look back at what I left, I thought, there's still a lot of people going back to work. Yeah, okay, that's their choice. But then I had to make it work, and playing covers all our lives. I mean, I'm still playing covers. Writing songs has helped further that and given us more choice. My dad was always saying, that's not a real job. Go and get a real job, that kind of thing. Everybody was doubting. Look at that lazy fella. musicians were doing their own thing. The things I did learn is what type of bass strings to use, punctuality and professionalism, that stuff. But you had to learn that firsthand. And I think when you learn it firsthand, it sticks with you because that's when the light bulb comes on and it stays there, But I go, I do go and talk to other young fellas that are getting into the music. And now that I've learned all of that stuff, I passed it on that way. But yeah, we didn't really get that much help from anyone, especially in those days. You were like an outcast if you were a musician, and it was only a hobby, and you were going to get back to your day job soon.
What advice did you give young guys coming through in the music industry?
Yeah, you got to be professional. It's not a walk in the park. If you want to be rich and famous, you really got to have something to offer. And then sometimes you got to sell your soul, and I don't want to do that. To me, it's about the people. You're entertaining people, and they're the ones that turn up and they buy the tickets at the door, and they buy your CDs, and they this and that, and that's what keeps you going. The stuff that you see on TV, they're selling a product too. That's the music industry. So they're selling a product. I look at it as, we're selling our livelihood, our talent and stuff like that. We don't really have a schedule to keep. We go with the flow, and it's about being real about the whole thing. You got the starry eyes in your face and stuff like that, and that costs money, and someone's got to pay for it. And usually you're at the end of the pay slip, not at the beginning. You got all of these other people, so that's the industry side of things. So if you can handle, doing it from the roots upwards, it's better for you than shooting too high.
What does selling your soul mean?
What that means is that it's not a free lunch. You got to do things. If you want to be famous, you got to do things for the one that's buying you, because really that's what they're doing. They'll own you. You sign a contract. Why would you sign a contract for? It's because they're investing in you, and you're going to make them money as well as yourself, but you're making them money, and you're their property until your contract is over. And so when I say sell your soul, it means give up who you are, or because they can easily tell you what to wear as well, what video you're going to make, what songs you're going to do, and you're not making the choices all the time. It's them. And that's the selling your soul kind of thing. For the fame and fortune, you have to give yourself up.
Kia ora, let me introduce you to my friend Nikora.
Kia ora, my name is Nikora, Nikora Pieni. I come from a little town in the Hauraki called Kitapihi. Was raised in Pairo and currently living in Mount Maunganui. I've got 4 beautiful children and a beautiful wife that I adore.
Nikora, could you tell me about the Kaitiaki project that you set up?
Our vision and intention for the Kaitiaki project is to empower our people to reach their true higher self. In order of doing so, us as a collective here at the Kaitiaki project was created to equip our people with the adequate tools to keep them in balance in their everyday life and in our communities. We ensure by creating a safe space, it will give people invitation to start peeling back the layers and start their healing journey within themselves, encouraging our people to create leaders for the betterment of our people of Aotearoa. During the time of COVID-19, we came together as a rōpū and created this kaupapa and really go deep within ourselves as to why we are doing this mahi. And we practice this mahi every day, and it's very important to us that we practice what we preach.
Nikora, what changes have you seen in yourself?
A few changes, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of empowerment. I've been engaging with a lot of people that 2 years ago you wouldn't have seen me engage with those people. It's opened me up to a lot of different healing And the reason that I feel that a lot of our tāne should be coming onto our hikoi, because if we don't start now, we know we're going to start. We have all these titles on our heads: the provider, the father, the husband. When are we actually going to provide a safe environment for our whānau? So I encourage all of our tāne around the whole of Aotearoa to jump on these kaupapa and just be uncomfortable in it, because that's where we find true growth, is being in uncomfortable situations. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Our website's just coming out, but it's at the Kaitiaki Project, and you will see a lot of our facilitators, a lot of our key facilitators, our leaders on that page. At the Kaitiaki Project, we just want you to experience that good medicine. We call this the medicine, is engaging and seeing every other man in that space vulnerable and opening up. Because when in your life do you actually get that safe space to be vulnerable without being judged, without being criticized, and just being who you truly are?
Welcome back to the Becoming Tāne podcast. Ryan, I believe each of us is born with a superpower. I define a superpower as a particular skill, ability, or attribute that makes you you. It is your secret sauce. It is what people remember about you. With this in mind, Ryan, what are your superpower or superpowers?
When I think about it, I'm always there trying to make it work. So I don't know what that superpower would be like. When I mean make it work. When we have a problem, it's almost like visualizing the answer. And, like if I need to build something, or we have to, it's like visualization person. I stare into nothingness, and then it starts ticking off in my head. And then I go, oh, let's do this. And I'm just talking about what I do around the family and what I do around the band, because those are my two main, And like I said about being rootsy and cultural and earthy, you're making something out of nothing, and you got to pluck it. When they say, oh, you can't pluck it out of thin air, well, you kind of can. Once it's an image inside your head, it's like projecting a screen onto the wall. But all that is I'm visualizing. So yeah, I don't know what that X-ray man or something. I don't know.
This makes me think about a book written by Marie Forleo. It says that everything is figure-outable. Is this what you are describing?
Yeah, but the thing is, not everything, but most things are figure-outable. It's just being cool about it if you can't figure it out. It's not a failure. It's just that you can't figure that one out. There's no contract saying you have to figure everything out. And that takes away the pressure, as men or as humans, you know what I mean? If we're linking it back to the subject we're here for, tāne, it's not putting too much pressure on yourself to always provide and come up with it. At least you try.
This is what your significant other identified as your superpowers. 1, you're a talented musician. As everyone knows, Ryan is a very talented musician. He plays multiple instruments, but his arrangements are unbelievable. Hence, the Arija albums are quality. Superpower number 2, amazing DIY skills. If he thinks it, he builds it. I certainly took a leaf out of his book. Superpower number 3, work ethic. He has a great philosophy that he has taught his family. In order to be a loving and independent, you don't get things handed to you, but instead you've got to work hard for them, and his family are stronger for it. He applies the same philosophy to his family and also to his music. What do you think about this description?
Woo! Well, I chose the right person to answer it. No, but that's the thing. The reason why there were two of the guys. He was one of them, and our sax player was the other. And they would have said the same thing, I think, because they're always with me. They're always around me, and I'm always with them, you know. Yeah, that's pretty much that, you know, that's, yeah, I work hard when I actually forget that I work hard, you know, because I'm not focused on it. I'm just doing it. There's a doing it and there's a thinking about it, you know. But then, you know, using that thought to figure out what you're going to do, you know, and then, I mean, the talent in the music, I mean, there's way better musicians out there to me, but I go for what the average person likes to listen to. So I'm not putting up that pressure on myself again to deliver. So when they say multi-instrumentalist, I say, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. But it's the human feel that I'm after, communicating with humans with that feel, that body clock, and that spiritual connection, not religious connection, but spiritual connection. Because we're all made up of the same stuff, you know? And it's about that, yeah. So that stuff has helped me through my life and through other, you know, help other people around. I mean, I'll help anyone out on the side of the road or whatever, you know.
Have you always been a DIY type of person?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
I think, you know, when I went on my whakapapa journey, I found that I had some ancestors that were inventors, and there was one French guy, because we're part French as well. He was like a big engineer for America, and he had something to do with battleships, actually putting cannons, you know, like full-on stuff onto a frigate. And then carpentry is in there too, because there's other ancestors that I found out, some of their work is still around, and it's precision stuff. And then my father was a bit of a, you know, same type. And even on my mum's side, her uncles, there's music in there and there's carpentry. So it's in the DNA, I think.
For some men, we have a private persona and a public persona. Sometimes those personas are different and don't match. Do you have a public and private persona? If so, what do you do there?
Yeah, I'm actually a shy person when it comes to the public. Like with the band, I've learned now that the way to get over that shyness with the public and the music is treat them like family. So all these people that come and watch it, they're family. So I can be cool around family, you know, open, a lot more open. And, you know, like, because we're supposed to love each other anyway. My grandma used to always say, love one another. You know, that kind of, we were very religious. Yeah, that was always said when we were growing up. So I carried that on. Easier to be open with your family. But when it got to being in the public, it was like, ooh, you know, and shut down and all of that. But just recently, it's like looking at everybody as family. And then, sweet, welcome home. Yeah, oh, cool, you know. And then, welcome to the gig. Oh, we're going to have fun tonight. We're going to share the love. Sweet, you know. And that's it.
You said recently. How do you define recent?
I'd say within the last 3 years.
Wow. You and your band have been playing for over 40 years, and only in the last 3 years you felt comfortable? That's crazy.
Yeah, definitely, man. Everything else has been like you know, serious, and but it's also this time of this what the world is going through at the moment. But it's the positives that I'm finding is that we're coming together as humans, and we're learning about each other, and we're realizing that it's just us, that we have to work things together, and all. Not saying there's nothing else in the universe. I'm just saying down here on Earth, we got to figure it out. Community is important, because we're in it alone. I mean, I'm coming from South Auckland. I live in South Auckland, and we're getting the rap for a lot of. We've always got the rap for a lot of rubbish, media bullshit. Excuse my language. So what lately I've been thinking about doing is flipping it so that I don't come from South Auckland. I come from Auckland South. And that'll stuff everybody up from making judgment. You know what I mean? And, we've had performances in our backyard. We've had about 5 of them so far in the last 3 months. 100 people, and that's, keeping the limit and stuff. But it's just been family, and it's been about sharing the love. It's been about respecting each other. They respect our home. It's just a buzz for them to be in the Arija house, in the Arija backyard, sharing this beautiful music. And that's what it's been for me, is coming together as people, as community, as family, and wider brothers and sisters, So yeah, that's that.
Kia ora to all the podcast listeners of Becoming Tāne. This season I've been promoting our t-shirt merchandise. We have another t-shirt that I would like to let you know about. The name of this t-shirt is our Progression Over Perfection t-shirt. I really like the idea behind the thought of progression over perfection. It is about continual growth rather than trying to be perfect all the time. The idea around being perfect all the time, or even right now, is a huge challenge, and I'm more interested in those gradual steps, not at the final destination of perfection, but in the everyday improvement of tāne and men that are out there. So, if you're interested in this t-shirt, you can go to our website, which is www.becomingtane.men, and you go onto our merchandise tab and look for the Progression Over Perfection t-shirt. As with the other tees, it comes in 3 colors, white, black and grey, and we have a number of sizes. Please remember that when you purchase our t-shirt, it can take up to 7 working days for the t-shirts to be delivered to you. So again, thank you for all those that have supported our merchandise by buying one. Love to see pictures of people wearing them. And if you want, tell your whānau about these as well. Nau mai whakahoku mai ki te kōna ipurangi nei a tū tāne, ko taku manuhiri I tēnei rā a Ryan Monga. Ryan, I believe that life is our greatest teacher. So what has life taught you so far?
Don't always look at face value on things, and don't always, someone will say something and feel okay about questioning it. Put your own mind into it. Things that we have to do in life. Sometimes a lot of our problems, they shouldn't be problems, but because of what we live in, they are problems, and there's reasons why, but I think, it's about questioning everything, looking at doing your research, but looking, and I'm so happy about the internet. It's opened up the information road, or whatever, and it's helped me, because I'm a dyslexic person as well, and I don't read very well, and grammar and all of that stuff, and I don't care really. It's a lot of those pressures in life take away from who you actually are, because sometimes you have to fit a mold, and we don't all fit one mold. Once you learn how to tap into your own thing, your own self, then the pressure is off, and you can get out there and see things through your eyes rather than through someone else's eyes. And then you can make your own decisions on certain things without being forced to decide or to live in a world where it's someone else's world, not your world. Oh, yes, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to sign that paper and do this and that. And you go, hang on, let me just stand back here, because at the end of the day, we got our own human right to live our life and be who we want to be, and the choices we make as humans, as people, as community. We're all different, and once you figure that out, then you know where to walk. It's actually your expectations of the life that you've been told to live. But at the end of the day, life is about feeding yourself and your kids, providing a roof over the head, and interaction. Those are the basics in life. Everything else is extra. So if you can grow your own vegetable, plant your own fruit trees, at the end of the day, you just want to pick that thing off the tree. Bob Marley sings about it a lot, The food is thirsty. So you feed the food, and then it will provide for you, Just simple things like that. And if you got a piece of land, you can go and plant that stuff, yourself. You don't have to get a degree. Well, it's nice to know how to do it properly, but there's a lot of people with that information, the old people, even young people, and the internet's got a lot of stuff that they share now. And all it is I'm talking about is providing without the stress and the pressure that modern life gives you. Because they make something to make it make life a lot easier and convenient and all of that, but it's adding stress, and it's adding. You got to work for that extra money to go and buy that stuff. Where if you had the seeds and stuff and the know-how, you go and plant it in the backyard, go down fishing. Oh, fishing is treated like we're having a holiday now and we're going on a fishing trip, and then we come back to work. But people lived like that before. Their work was going fishing and providing, once again, for the family. Have that interaction, like this this conversation right here. And I prefer hands-on, when you meet up, sometimes I call Tony up and we go and have a coffee, down the road. Sure, okay, and that's that out of the way. We've done that. We've had a bit of a gossip and catch up, and then okay, we're sick of each other now. See you later. And we go our separate ways, and then I wonder what Tony's doing again. It's like that. And I think those are the treasures of life and of that journey. And just interacting with whānau and friends and whoever. Keep it all open. So, yeah.
One of the things I'm getting from our kōrero today is independence.
Totally.
And sovereignty.
Yep.
Yeah.
You work within the marae, the village, the tribe, but you yourself is sovereign, You have your own contract to the universe. So what might be good for me mightn't be good for someone else, but I'm just looking after me. And then whoever else is around me and needs help. Or I'll go for a ride with them, and they're doing it. Oh, yeah, sweet. You got it covered. Sweet. It's about providing and taking away, they're looking at the stars and they're adding all of these 5G stuff and these new gadgets and devices and shit. And we don't really need them. My iPhone 8 Plus works just fine. I don't need to go any higher. It's only up when they decide to make it obsolete and you have to have this new phone to, and it's like, okay, you're the boss, but we don't really need all of that stuff. It's a tool to help us through our lives, but we don't really need all of that stuff.
Ryan, if there was one thing you would like the listeners of the Becoming Tāne podcast to take away from your kōrero today, what would that be?
The first thing that came into my head was be yourself. You know, that's the first thing. But there's a lot of things too. You mightn't like yourself. So it's about realizing that you do have choices. You are somebody. You belong. You know, all of these positive things. But in order to help others, you really need to be able to help yourself first. That's looked upon as being selfish, but you have to know how to do that. And that's kind of like your proof that you can take care of others, because you can take care of yourself. So be yourself and know that you have choices in life. They're God-given choices. They're universal choices. You know, as long as you're not hurting anyone, and no one's hurting you, of course. You have to defend yourself, but you got to provide for yourself first, then you can provide for others. And just go with the flow of life.
The name of the podcast is called Becoming Tāne. It is named Tāne because it can be translated into English to mean man, male, or husband. It also is named after Tāne Mahuta, one of our atua, because of his desire to learn and grow. So my last question is, what do you think it means to become a man?
Well, the way I look at it is that I am male. So when I grow up, I will be a man. But becoming a man is about knowing yourself and where you fit. And I think taking that pressure off yourself from always being there and having to provide, it takes the pressure away, and then you actually learn to get into yourself and look at your talents, you know, what you're good at, what you can contribute to the family unit, to the community. It's all about that. I mean, there's other expectations and there's other perceptions too, you know, like a lot of the times, like for me, I was close to my mum. So there was always women around when I was growing up, you know, and that's the same with a lot of other men. And then their woman, you know, you get into a relationship and then it's like, hey, it's different here, you know, and then, but the basics are still the same. You still stick to yourself and find out who you are and what you can contribute to the family unit and the community type thing, you know, and just realize that you're just part of it. You're not the be all and end all, and that takes away the pressure. And you want to go for a kayak fish, go for it. You provided during the week, yes, sweet, okay, right, my time out. I want to go for a motorbike ride or something, you know. And it's about celebrating life and your life, you know, and making those decisions for yourself as well as providing for your family and stuff, you know.
Kia ora, Ryan. Thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge and experience that you've shared with us today. We really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. No, it was nice sharing that experience and stuff. And it's good to let people know what's been going on behind the scenes. They only know the music side of things. And it's good to know the journey behind it.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou I whakaronga ki māua e tēnei rā. Kei te pīrangi au I ako koutou mai te kōrero o Ryan. Thank you for listening to us today. I hope you learned something from Ryan's story. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast platform you're listening to from today. You can listen and download the Becoming Tāne podcast from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher or iHeartRadio. And we're also on YouTube. If you would like to contact us, our email is becomingtane@gmail.com. Our handle on Facebook and Instagram is at Becoming Tane, and our website is www.becomingtane.men. Now for some gratitude. Ryan, I'm grateful that you shared your kōrero with us today. Kano Sadler, I'm grateful for your amazing musical talents and for you creating the music for our podcast. I'm grateful to Aaron and Merrick Moike for your editing skills for the podcast. And finally, I'm grateful to my wife and kids for loving me in spite of all my faults. Hei a te rā wiki, until next week, haere tu atu, hoki tu mai, go well and return in good health, mauri ora.